Good morning. Welcome. Sorry for the lateness. Tech issues. As I get the studio set up, everything's a little bit of a mess here in the old office. So I had to find a few things before I could go live. So anyhow, good morning, Andrew. Good morning, CJ, and good morning, Mint with Card. I like the new logo, Mint with Card. It looks very nice. All right. So today we're doing some whips, i.e. all of the stuff that I have started and not finished. This is a Back to the Future coloring book. The actual flip through and full coloring for this actually drops tomorrow. I started this on the stream for charity with the Dave and Dre. Obviously not quite finished. I got this one I barely started, just a little skin work. This one's a really old whip, like 2 years. I started it and then ended up working on this one instead for the video that I did for the flip through. So, both of them have wood grain, so there is that. And I have a bunch. This is from when me and Kenny did a stream on a Friday night. This was from the Father's Day stream. This is from forever ago when Aaron the Toy Enhancer was still doing ToyTube content. This is from Mint with Card. Mint with Card is coming back next month, but we're going to do Go Box. So I've got this in the stack. This is the one I used as warm-up on the Father's Day stream. This is Battle of the Planets from the Brick stream. And then this is Katra from many months ago when Adam from Highly Articulated was here. This is from Janessa J. Champagne, her first stream with me. And this is from 3-Star Draw Darren when he came. Almost done. I just have a few little details and then Lady J's outfit. And then I believe this was one of the ones I did when Andrew Gady Swizz was here. And this is from Thanos. So I've got a lot to work on that I definitely won't finish all of these today. But some of them. I am going to start with the Lady Dis Joe one because literally I just need to put a little color in this patch and then her outfit and her hair. So that'll go pretty quick. So one of these actually gets finished. And then after that, I think I'm going to do the Vader and the Skeletor. And those are the ones on the thumbnail, so it kind of makes sense. And then if I finish all 3 of these before the end, we'll just grab something else. So, and all of that will appear on a future web stream. We will get to these eventually, hopefully, in theory. All right, so with all the officials out of the way, how is everyone's weekend going? I'm gonna put my, we're at the part of the day where I have not put my hand brace on, so I'm gonna do that off camera. Let's see. Hello, Ria, lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. Lovely as always. Good morning, Alex. Sorry, but also thanks. Like Sally Strother says, pennies a day to help feed a toy tuber. Good morning, Brian. Any bit of time you can pop in and hang out is muchly appreciated. Yeah, the ads are hit or miss. I don't know what it is. I've got one account that does not have premium that never gets ads, and then I have my premium account that definitely never gets ads, and then I have another account that that I use for work that gets nothing but nonstop ads. So. But anyway, I'm gonna take this down. I'm not take it down too much because this one won't be down very long. I think I also need to do the shark's mouth. But yeah. Originally, Adam from the Battle Ram blog was going to be here today, but there was a slight, some stuff on scheduling on his stuff that we needed to reschedule. So they'll definitely be here. But it actually worked out just because I've really been trying to get everything together for the studio this week. Because all that needs to happen is I have to unpack and set everything up. So I spent a lot of time doing that yesterday. It's very overwhelming right now. I am taking a little bit of footage at the beginning of each day when I go out there, though. So at the end of it, I'll put like a little video together or something. It's like, here's the progress. Day 1, day 2. Maybe I'll drop that Nothing Beats a Jet 2 holiday sound clip. If I get finished before that's no longer. We'll do a short with the sound clip and then a longer video. What is that? But yeah, so it's good to finally sort of get to a place where it's almost done, but it's just very stressful at this point. Like it just, I don't know. It's one of the few times I'm like, I wish I were a billionaire so I could pay people to do this for me. But also, it's a bad time to be a billionaire. They're dropping like flies. Just need a few more to complete the trifecta. So. All right, and that's Lady J's jumpsuit. As you can see, this 48 pencil set that I bought this right when we moved into the house. A lot of it is very used, and some of it, not at all. It'll get there. But it's time to, I think, cycle these into the case. Give Lady J some light umber for her hair. Since this is pretty small. Just a little bit of the sienna. Let's see. Oh yeah, for sure. Probably better than what I've got, to be honest. I did not, well, I didn't go to art school. I just took art in college. And my teacher kind of sucked. So, well, my professor, he was a professor. He had tenure. And it was not the best. But we spent a lot of time listening to him with his weird opinions about what does and doesn't make an artist. And a lot of time of him like flexing about how hot his wife was. But it worked out because his wife eventually left him for a younger, hotter man. So eventually everyone gets theirs, is my humble opinion. Yeah. We love that for him. But yeah, he was just a jerk. Like, yeah, I get like I am 100% a person who believes that you have, like you need to learn sort of the basics. I have no problem with the basics. I think it's important, like, to sort of start with a basic, sort of a common language, if you will, especially in art, like, so that everyone sort of knows, very common. But he just had his little pet theories about what does and doesn't make an artist, and in that respect, I don't think anyone can create art. I think everyone has creativity in them. Not everyone is naturally talented. Not everyone, like if you want to draw, you're not sort of talented per se, you can practice drawing every day and be proficient. You're never going to be like, in for comics, you'll never be like Jen Lee or George Perez or what have you. But you could still be proficient if you practice every day and work at it. Some people don't have to practice every day. And he kind of didn't think that. And, I don't know. We had a couple people in our class he was quite mean to because he didn't think they had any talent and that they were wasting his time. And it's just like, that's not basically they're paying you, at least to, you are talking about the basics, give them the basics. And you just sort of had his handful of artists he thought were really good, and those were the only ones he wanted to ever talk about. Van Gogh is one of my personal favorite artists. I have a lot of Van Gogh prints. And he fortunately he enjoyed Van Gogh as well, so it wasn't, but also it was just like he wasn't considering other than Van Gogh and Picasso and who was the other one? It was like Monet maybe. And he just, for him, I know those two. Yeah, and I know definitely Van Gogh because I enjoy Van Gogh. So I was excited at first before I realized he was a piece of shit. But I don't know, some people just shouldn't teach. And I think that's what, and I think this is going to sound really, well, I've already been super rude and bitchy about him, so why stop? But, that old adage, those who can't do teach, which isn't always true. My best art teacher in elementary school is a phenomenal artist. I still at times when I'm trying to figure stuff out, art-wise, sort of remember stuff she taught me. And she's my teacher from 2nd to 7th grade. My school district didn't have high school arts. But she was, her stained glass work was just gorgeous. There's just not a lot of money in stained glass. You'll sell a piece for hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size, but there's not a huge market in this day and age for stained glass. It was my favorite thing she taught us too, just because when she, it's her favorite thing to make, she was super passionate about it. Her daughter still does art, and her daughter actually has a bunch of her stained glass pieces still. Every so often, her daughter will post a picture of the sun through one of the stained glass on Facebook, and I get really excited. Because one of them, I remember when she was making it. She and her husband had bought a house, and one of the windows, because it was Louisiana, it was a very old house. Not all of that old houses. There are windows in a lot of the older houses, especially in the South, that don't always open. That's partly for the seal, that helps with storm stuff. So anyway, she replaced one of the whole windows with a beautiful stained glass of a vine. So it was all green leaves, and there were lots of circles and swirls are some of the hardest things to do in stained glass. And the entire thing was just these vines and leaves with circles and swirls and curves, and it was just gorgeous. We would go to at the end of each year, we would go to her house and in the class, and we were small, it wasn't huge. And we would go to her house, and she, we would spend the day. She would take us like to jewelry makers, or like we do a little field trip. We go to a little museum locally, learn about local artists, and then we go have lunch at her house. And every year we would go, and it's like the sea glass would get further and further along, and it was just really cool. She finished it like my last year with her, so that was super cool. Yeah, so I miss her quite a bit. Like, it was very sad to me when she passed, because she was a really good person. And just really passionate and amazing. One of the reasons I survived adolescence was, her teachings and her way of moving through the world. So I think of quite a few people that were my teachers. My professor, for instance, who sadly are still with us. But not for much longer. They're all boomers. Their days are numbered. And so, anyway. All right, there we go. I'm glad we started with this because I just finished one. So we will finish at least one. Ooh, excellent. And we're doing Star Trek next week when you're here, Andrew, so that'll be good. Let's see. Yeah, let me tell you, views are definitely down in August. If I weren't OCD about my release schedule, I would have taken the month off. But I've got a schedule to keep. And then, I make, it's not like I do toy news. So my stuff is pretty evergreen. So when people come back from the summer, they'll be overwhelmed by all the videos I kept releasing. All right, we're going to work on the Skeletor next. The tricky part about the Skeletor is I don't remember the blue or which of the purples I used for his armor. So, yeah. I'm going to have to do a few pencil tests to try to figure that out. That's okay. It's art. Let's see if I can find it. Nope. There we go. All right. Here's a test page. See if I can match it. No, that's too dark. It's from Black Cherry. Oh, that's brown. Okay, my eyes. Yeah, that's not Black Cherry. That's definitely sepia. It's too light. No, it's too dark to be dark purple. It's black raspberry. Nope. Black raspberry. Definitely not mulberry. Let's see, is it not black cherry? Good lord. What did I use? Cherry. I wonder if that's black grape. If it is, I think I'm out of black grape. Shoot. All right, we might get creative with Skeletor. Dang, y'all. Dang. Yeah, I think that's black grape, and my black grape open stock is on the way. So, luckily it's just this. We can get away with a little creativity. Let's see, this one is close, so we will go with this. And then that way it won't all sort of blend together. Yeah, that's definitely black grape now that I'm looking at it, and it's fishy. So I usually try to do the bones in different colors of his armor anyway, to make it work. You make it work, y'all. You definitely should. Well, the problem with that also, Alex, with shorts is like it takes more for them to put. Like, you know, you can get 1,000 views on a short, but at the same time, like, it's such a small fraction. I mean, and I'm not discounting that. I've got a lot of stuff with thousands of views, but I don't know. Shorts on YouTube are really weird. Sometimes something will kick and you don't understand. And I'll look at stuff on YouTube that has millions of views and I don't. It's mostly brain rot. So I'm just not ever going to do brain rot. I don't personally believe in multitasking. I think most people who multitask just do a bunch of things poorly at the same time. Hello, Berdazzle. And that's after 30 years in corporate situations and offices where there's always somebody like, you need to be able to multitask. And then the people who say that they're doing multitasking, they're just half-assing everything at once. And it's just like, you know, there's something to be said for, I think in office situations, the meaning of the word. I mean, multitasking to me is like, you know, like, can you sing a song, cook dinner, and keep an eye on your cats to make sure they're not, the kittens are at the stage where they're in everything. They have figured out how to open the cabinets. So we had to get child protective. Those little like things you get so your kids can't go into the cabinets. Because we're at that stage of the kittens. But like an office situation when people are like, I've got 30 projects and I'm doing all of them multitasking. It's like, then you check their work and it's like, none of it's good, or it's like none of it ever really progresses because they're trying to do 30 things at once instead of just knocking one thing out. I don't know. I think I feel like multitasking is one of those things that corporate America tries to sell people on so that you kill yourself doing labor. And the older I get, the less a lot of that stuff. You know, I used to work in HR, so like I 100% was, you know, one of the people like, oh my God, you have to do these things, and this is the only way to be successful. And I just, as I get older, I'm like, it's kind of crock. But there are places, I just don't think in an office setting there's a real thing such as multitasking. And, you know, my current work situation is not really something where we have anything where you would need to multitask. And so, in fact, I actively discourage anyone from trying to, because I work in insurance, you know, so the thought that somebody, you know, like when you've got patient records or whatever in front of you, you don't need to have multiple patient files open so that you can do more than one thing. You know, that's how people's information gets mixed up, and you definitely don't, for insurance stuff, you don't want to send the wrong information with a claim or try to dispute a claim and not have the right patient information because you're trying to work on 2 or 3 things. So also, you know, my opinions are very specific. So not to discount anyone who thinks they multitask well. I don't know if it can exist in an office setting or if it even should. That's part of why people burn out in offices. They're trying to do too much. It's like, pace yourself. All right. Yeah, that's the color change on the armor and everything is going to be fine. And it looks okay. Because I went in and went over some of it with this one, and it looks okay. So my bad planning as far as the black grape situation will work out. Hello, Nolan. Welcome. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because this is this particular bit of art is sort of redone a couple times over. It started with the earliest I've seen. There was a picture of Skeletor playing chess, where all the Masters of the Universe were chess pieces, and then in one of the books, Alcala has sort of Skeletor and Beastman standing over like a diorama with Castle Grayskull and a bunch of Motu figures, sort of moving them around. Like here's the, and so that's what I think what this is from. So these are technically Skeletor's action figures as he does battle stuff. And so yeah, and the art. Some of the art from this book is obviously very stylized. So there are a couple places where the poses are really odd. I love them because it's very stylized. As a kid, I hated this book. It looks weird, but as an adult, like who is leaning into the art of things, I really like the book now. Just goes to show you. Let's see. Just making sure I didn't miss anybody. All right, very good. Caught up on chat. But yeah. So, yeah, no, yeah, a lot of sort of, especially in this era of Motu, a lot of the coloring books just sort of recycled the same couple of images in different artists. So there were just a couple of different things where you would see, and there were a few where originally it was the goddess version of the sorceress, where she was, in the Tila armor. And then they went and did those once the Filmation sorceress look took over. So you suddenly got the sorceress doing, things at the. So it's really interesting. Just like over at Golden Books, I guess they sort of had a pack, like a bunch of images, and it's like use these. And it's clearly with this isn't tracing because none of the other. Other coloring pages of this particular scene look like this. This is a really specific perspective. Like most of them, it's like he's sort of standing, and it's very way less stylized. So it's, again, as an adult, I like this book a lot better because sort of the stylistic choices the artist took. And it was right when Filmation stuff started, becoming the norm. So it's like there's a lot of stuff in this book that is Filmation, and there's stuff that is pre-Filmation, and a couple cases where he's trying to sort of blend the two. Like he takes the picture, sort of the typical picture poses of the goddess giving He-Man the sword and everything, and that's, I think, as far as I can tell, it's the first occurrence of that picture in this book, where the sorceress is kind of coming down from the sky and bestowing all of that stuff on He-Man. And that particular page, the art, the concept of it got repeated a couple of times, but it's the first time like Bird Sorceress sort of shows up. In that particular page. So it's really interesting. Like, that's one of the things I like about these old, especially for Motu and She-Ra, these old coloring books, you can see sort of where sort of the history and the lore and stuff shifts, you know, from Jungle Man, He-Man to, you know, like Prince Adam, and then when Filmation kind of takes over. And I've got a few things that are after sort of the cartoon was canceled, where they start sort of defaulting back to the toy looks, where it's like the coloring book has equal parts of Teela, you know, with the snake armor and everything, as well as Teela and her Filmation look, and the same with Evelyn. So it's toward the end of, you know, toward the end of the toy line, once the cartoon was just completely done, there does look like there was some effort being made at the end, like in 87-ish, to start pushing back. And the toys, and I know this because thank you, Adam at Battleland Law. In 1987, those last waves of figures, you could still order He-Man, Teela, Skeletor, Beastman, and Evelyn. So and Man-at-Arms. So those were all sort of figures you could order through the end of the toy line. Like the last time you see them sort of in a Toy Fair, you know, catalog that you could order as a retailer, those characters were still available. So just really sort of interesting when you sort of look at that side of it, that despite the fact that they weren't getting a lot of those figures out, so that was part of what killed the line. They were shipping a lot of cases, you know, with more buzz off the Rock people, and sort of flooding the market with all the B characters. Mattel technically did give retailers the ability to order the core characters to the very end. And also in 87, it would have sort of tied into the movie. So that also kind of makes sense. It's just, you know, the toy looks were radically different than the movie, so I don't... If the movie had been a hit, I think, frankly, it was a big mistake for Mattel not to do movie looks. What do I know? Oh, that would be really cool, Brian. No, I would love that. And yes, thank you, Ray. Yeah, don't forget to hit the like. I forget to say that on live streams. It's easier on pre-recorded video. I just have like my little reel I drop at the end of the video. You know, because most of them don't have, you know, the colored ones especially don't always have voiceover, so it's really easy just to plug that in. I forget on live streams to tell people to smack the like. So thank you, Rita. It's very, very helpful. All right, that actually, the dark purple over the black grape looks pretty good. So it is not the complete train wreck I was expecting when I realized I'm out of black grape until my open stock pencils deliver on Tuesday, where I have 3 black grapes. So this is not necessarily a really common color, in any of the Prismacolor sets. It's only in like the big expensive ones. And unfortunately, I'm in a I'm in a rural enough setting where we don't really have any craft stores. There was a Joann's in the town closest, the biggest town closest to us, but not anymore. And there's not a Michael's there, so like when Joann's closed, it just closed. I mean, that happened before I moved down here, so all of that was happening as we were packing up. But with the various online retailers, there's a really good one in Ohio that is basically a school supply company that I can just get open stock, and it's affordable. And unfortunately, Black Art is spendy, and their shipping is terrible. And they're actually kind of one of those stores that move into places and then run out all of the mom and pop stores. So when I do drive up to Portland, there are a couple really good independent art stores that I go to that I can get open stock pencils. That aren't Blick, but also I will go in person to Blick because the Blick store I go to used to be a really cool art store, and it still employs some of the same people. So, but I try to go to the independent one, and if they don't have it, then I'll go to Blick. Sadly, there aren't any art stores down here, or even craft stores. But it is rural enough that, we're lucky. In my humble opinion, we're lucky that we have a couple grocery stores, so that I can, we can hit all the stores, hit the sales, and then keep our grocery budget reasonable. And because, I work from home, we don't have, gas and stuff I don't have to worry about as much. It all sort of works out. But the other side of it is when I run out of Black Grape Prismacolor, I can't just run over to the store and pick it up. I have to wait a couple of days. But it worked out because here we are. And it's pretty decent, actually. So, yeah. Oh, that would be cool. Oh, yeah. He, totally. He's got an entire room in Snake Mountain. Well, and it's funny about that because we went and saw the movie, and I didn't really care for the movie as a kid. It was like, where's She-Ra? Why does everything look weird? Good morning, Kenzo. Lovely to see you. Thank you for popping in. But we did. We left the movie theater and we went straight to the toy store. Well, it was the KB in the mall. But we went straight over and we went to the toy aisle, and they had Weldor and Blade and Sauron and a bunch of rock people. And yeah. So my brother got Weldor and excuse me, and Blade. And then I just went and got another. They had a bunch of Castaspellas and Frostas, so I just got another Castaspella because those were on discount at that point. But it was pretty discouraging. Like, I felt like it was a huge mistake on their part to not, like, you don't even have to do movie likenesses. It would have been really easy to sort of do repaint, Evelyn especially. You could have just really easily repainted her and given her a cloth cape and achieved a movie look. Just her armor, like her outfit in black, the armor in silver, do the sort of swirly patterns on her from her chest to her neck and on her arms and her legs. You know, give her a cosmic key accessory. And there you've got a movie Evelyn with basically a new cape, a new weapon, and a paint change. With Tila, like, there's some extra steps that would have needed to happen. My man at arms saying, like, you literally just go and do a, you know, like a mustache, and then redo them in movie colors. You know, people have been wanting that. I mean, my brother drew a mustache on his man at arms so he would match the cartoon. So it just, I don't know, it was weird. You know, like, again, He-Man, you just use the basic He-Man body and you know, give a new armor, a new cape, new sword. Skeletor, you just, again, redoing those movie colors. Same with Beastman. Give us a brown Beastman with some new armor. It just, I don't know. It seemed like at that point, to a degree, Mattel had given up. And in the year since, a couple, apparently they had planned on doing a card figure, Crag card, whatever his name was. And as well as that, the Stormtrooper, the black Stormtroopers that Skeletor used, like, some like designs for this have come out of Mattel in the last couple of years. So they definitely had, you know, bigger plans on the 3 figures they released. They had done a proper release, done some actual refreshes of the core characters, and then given us Karg and the Stormtrooper. I think that, you know, like, the movie line may have done a little bit better. You don't always need the movie to be a success for the toys to sell, especially with Motu. There was enough of a built-in audience. Again, we didn't like the movie, but we still went to look for the toys. And so, definitely, I think, a misstep on their part. Yeah, I think this is, Kenny, I think this is when I started with you on that one stream we did. When your work schedule settles, we should do another Friday stream sometime. Or a Tuesday or a Monday stream, whatever night you can stream on. I forget now that you're working, your schedule's not quite the same. I mean, I notice on Friday nights when you're not on, so you're not there to listen to while I'm working on stuff, but yeah. I made it as long as I could. I'm going to put on the duck music. There we go. Is that too loud? I just need a little bit because I can hear the computers, the sound of the computers grinding. That is, I have weird sound things sometimes, and the computers become one of them. And that's part of the reason I always have something on YouTube playing in the background when I'm at work, even if it's just like music. Alright, there you go. Excellent. Alright, that's pretty imposing and unhappy. So, good sculpture. Now, let's go in and give him some hands. Alright, now to remember what blue I used for the skin. Pretty sure it's this one, which is Caribbean blue. So we're about to find out. It's a little bit darker. But I don't know if it's noticeable. I'll put a little bit on the arms. Thank you. Yeah, definitely we will. Oh yeah. Definitely everyone should collab. Everyone should collab. And Andrew will be here next week. We're talking Star Trek, The Next Generation. I feel like there was some toy news recently about Star Trek as well, so. I just found yesterday when I was unpacking, I found a box that my Playmates Deanna Troy and Reaction Aurora, is that how you say it? Michelle Nichols, as well as my Migo 3 3/4 bald lady from the movie. It's about towards basic face. I'm just gonna go in with some green and do some shade. And one of the things I disliked about Filmation was how Skeletor's face was just sort of that sort of like sour yellow color. I always felt like he was scarier when he had all the different shades in his face. But in general, Filmation turned the villains into buffoons. And I kind of get it. Like, it makes him a little bit more, less scary for the little kids. But it always annoyed me how, like, Triclops and Trapjaw and Beastmail were always such buffoons in the cartoon. I mean, in the mini comics, they were often really badass. The only villain, in my opinion, that Filmation pretty consistently portrayed as like capable was Evil Ren. Which that I'm not going to complain about. That's cool, but it just always seemed weird that every Filmation villain had to be sort of a buffoon. Even over on Shiro Hordak was kind of a moron. Alright. I think Skeletor's face is pretty good. Now let's give him some eyes. Alright, and Skeletor is done. Gave him some eyes. He was smarter than the others, but like the voice they gave him sounded pretty dumb. So yeah, Cobra Khan they actually made him pretty evil, but he also was a snake. So like, I feel like you can get away with making the snake more evil. So Skeletor, if this toys is done, that's 2 down. Alright, let's finish this Vader. Alright, quickly I'm going to pull up a Vader reference so we can get that control panel sort of right. All right, there we go. I found a reference. He had a few in the Tale of Teal. I think it was the Tale of Teal. There was one episode where he had a bunch of fish dudes. Alright, so I found the actual still, photo still online, that this was drawn from. And I'm going to use that for reference. Vader's control panel changed a little bit from movie to movie. So I'm just going to use the Jedi one. This one may not be accurate to move for Empire. Go with this one. It's got a little bit more color in it. And this is very black and gray, so any little bits of color we can add to it is going to help. This is one where sort of the texture and the paper that I use helps because it's got so much truth. I can create textures based on how hard or how light I color with it, which is why he's just not a big black blob. Yeah, Revelations did give him. I think it was well, there was a flashback, but there was also a present day scene where he did have troops. Yeah, early episodes of Motu for Filmation, he did have soldiers and minions. But that was they don't think use them out a lot in the cartoon. It felt like, well, I mean, like there were always new figures. And again, thank you to Adam at the Battle Route blog. It looks like, based on his research, it looks like they stopped making Merman in like 1984. So they would have definitely deprioritized him as far as choosing a cartoon. He was like one of the last, like the way that early figures were released. Like my brother, like right away, my brother had He-Man, Skeletor, Beastman, and Man at Arms, and then we got Stratos for Christmas with his Castle Grayskull in 1982, and then we didn't find the others until much later. Like I remember getting Tila and Zodak. Those were the first two I bought in April I used my birthday money and bought both of those. And then right after that, he found Merman. It was on the day I got my Princess Leia Boosh from Return of the Jedi, which was right before the movie came out. So. And for anyone worried about spoilers and saying, "Oh, that spoiled the movie," no, because when Carrie Fisher was doing all like Good Morning America, my mom let me stay home from school, to watch her on Good Morning America. And when she was on Good Morning America, they showed two clips. The first of her taking the Boosh mask off to do the "Somebody Who Loves You," and then the other was Luke telling her that she was his sister. So. Those were both spoiled before the movie opened because those were clips that they sent with Carrie Fisher when promoting the movie. And so everyone who's sad, like goes all out and gets really Disney, like how hyper fixated they are on spoilers. It kind of used to not really matter all that much. technically there are just supposed to be 2 buttons here. The artist simplified it. So I'm going to do the blue just to get some of that color in there. The rest of these buttons are supposed to be white, with one of them red at the end. So just I'm going to do the red. And then these buttons should also be blue. Just in the picture I'm using, it's possible they were different colors elsewhere. Or they're really bluish gray. But I'm going to go blue. And just because she cut some of the buttons from here, I'm going to go ahead and give them an extra red. And technically those are white. But it really makes a ton of difference. Going into some white. And do it so that it pulls some of the gray, some of the black, and that'll kind of make them gray, so that it at least registers that there's something there. All right, very good. All right, let's do this face. So this in here is really sort of dark. So the insides of his helmet right there as dark as I can get those. Because all the pictures of the scene of those really dark. I mean, it's not a scene, it's a publicity photo they did. This is the page that when Kenner changed, updated the card backs for some of the original figures. This is the image that they used for Vader when they changed the card. The last 3 action figures I bought from Star Wars as a kid were Darth Vader on a Return of the Jedi card, C-3PO with removable lens on a Return of the Jedi card, and then the R2-D2 with the pop-up lightsaber. I bought those like 2 weeks before I got Shiro, and that was all over. And a few weeks before that, I bought at KB a bunch of Power of the Force figures, and that's where I got my Imperial S. The Imperial, the Imperial Dignitary from the last 17. I got regular New Hope Princess Leia on a Return of the Jedi card. They didn't update her card back. And so that same picture. And then like an Ewok, because they have those 3 for $1 specials on those. And I got Marion Ravenwood, Raiders of the Lost Ark figure. Because for whatever reason, a bunch of Raiders of the Lost Ark figure cases showed up at KB right around that time. Let's see. It was a good time. Alright, let's see. I'm going to outline this pretty dark. Like this up a little bit so that the neck doesn't look okay, and sort of the top there. It almost looks like right now he's doing an Arctic Clown makeup job, so we'll fix that. But first, all right. No, I'm using Prismacolor. Just because all of these were started with Prismacolor. Next week for the Star Trek stream with Andrew, I'm going to use the Black Widow pencils. I've actually got them sort of all out right now, and it'll be fun. They're fun to play with. So, but yeah, I'll use those next week. I'm sort of default to Prismacolor right now, just because I've got mostly Prismacolor, so it's easy to grab those. Once everything is set up in the studio, I'll be able to more easily access all the other pencil sets. Including all the ones I've been doing videos on, because what's been happening is I do a video and then I stick it in the box. And then don't really use it again. Just because we're in this temporary space. We can start using those, all of those, because other than one or two, most of the sets have been okay. Here's the one I really disliked, but I still have them, so I'll still use them. Because even the ones I didn't like, they worked okay on certain papers. So I just have to note that if it's something printed, make sure that I'm checking which page is printed. The thing I like about Prismacolor is of the 4 different sort of cardstock papers I use, Prismacolor works pretty good on all of them. So I don't have to worry about sort of the paper when I grab Prismacolor. Whereas with some of them, I definitely, like if you use the wrong paper, it just doesn't work well. And so every time I do one of the pencil tests, I do use that the Super Villain book, because that's by Inside Editions, and almost almost all of the adult coloring books where it's licensed, like the Dirty Dancing book I did, even the Wicked book is like Inside Editions, because they tend to do all the licensed stuff. So that's why I use that one, because that way you can tell if you buy any licensed book whether or not what I'm testing will work. And I try usually to just sort of do tests on budget brands. the video on the Posca was just sort of, I bought those because I was kind of excited because Posca's makes one of the better acrylic pens that I use. So I was excited about those pencils, and they were fine, but they were just not, in my opinion, worth the price for that set. And yeah, so I mean, I'll use them because I bought them, but it's not a set where if I use up one of the colors and be like, oh, I need to get another set. I'll just sort of. I got a set that it's not a real set. It's sort of all the sets I got where I'll use one or two of the colors up, and then have a bunch of pencils that are barely used or half used. So I'm going to start sort of compiling all of those. And at some point, I'll do a live stream where all I use is sort of the Island of Misfit Toys pencils. That is the one thing with that, the Marvel coloring. I don't know who watched the flip through on that Marvel book. If you did watch it, feel free to reach out to me on Blue Sky or Instagram. I'm going to do a live stream either at the end of this month or the beginning of next, where I take that book and see how many pages, because the art in it is pretty straightforward and simple. I'm going to see how many pages I can finish in a 2-hour stream. We use like paint pens and stuff, it won't just be pencils. But I think it would just be fun to do a live stream where the goal is to finish as many pages as possible. And so if you watched it and you have any of the pages you would like me to include in that, let me know. I will say I'm going to do Spider-Woman, She-Hulk, Ant-Man, and Wasp as shorts. So don't suggest those because I've already started planning the shorts for those. But anything else in that book, if you want me, just let me know and I'll rank them so that you know, I can start planning, because I'll need to have pencil sets and color schemes and stuff picked out to make it work. You have to do a little pre-planning. So let me know if there's anything from those you want to see, and just message me. Blue Sky should just be Allison Troy, and then on Instagram it's Retro Toy Princess. I mean, I've got the other account on Instagram, but that's sort of my personal account. Feel free to follow me out there, but I mainly just post cats and start. And if you're one of those people that don't want to know about the politics of the people you follow, don't follow my Instagram, because sometimes I do post politics there. So, but, you know, so you have the option of, you know, but definitely for channel stuff, follow the Retro Toy Princess one. Because that's where, if you know, or on Instagram, send me the any of the pages from that Marvel book you'd like to see me work on for that stream. It would be fun. I'm gonna do. I mean, not that this isn't fun, but it's fun to do challenging stuff from time to time. All right, we've got Vader. Hey, a 3-star. Yeah, that's not. It's not a thing. I need to ping you so that we can start planning when you'll come back for a star, Darren. It didn't quite work out with all the holiday and Joe Fest stuff, but we need to get you back on. Right. Now I'm going to see if I can get sort of the reflective look on his helmet. And this is always the hard part. There's not enough color down, especially with black. If there's not enough color, it won't work. But it's so easy to go just one step too far with it and then lose it. All right. Okay, that works. Up close it looks too much, but from far away on camera it looks fine. So there we go. Yeah, we were trying and it just didn't quite line up, so but no worries, we'll make it happen. Oh wait, here's where it is. Yeah, Blue Sky is like Twitter before Twitter became X and is now just a box. Like the last time we went on Twitter, it was just a bunch of bots. And none of the people I followed were in my stream. They kept pushing people at me. You know, there are people I'm not interested in listening to or following or whatever. So I use Blue Sky. I post channel stuff on there. I post. Blue Sky's kind of a mix. I do sometimes post political stuff, but not as much. But yeah, so Blue Sky, like I post on there often when a new video drops. Not every video, but when videos drop, I will go and post on there. And it has a messaging feature that's pretty easy to use. So one of the ways to get in touch with me, if you have questions about the channel or whatever, Instagram for the actual channel is probably the easiest, but not everyone does Instagram. So, and I'm on Facebook, and certainly people friend me on there, but Facebook is 100%. At this point, it's mostly just reposted from Instagram. I use that more for messaging and to keep in touch with like family and friends from back home in the South. Definitely politics on my Facebook, so definitely if that's not your channel, do not send me Facebook. And also, I don't always accept Facebook friend requests. Just because it's got a lot of personal stuff. I need to know who you are. Or at least have a sense of who you are. So. But Facebook is kind of dying anyway, so I don't recommend anyone, you know, like, I don't invest very much into Facebook, basically. So the place to find me if you're wanting to know more about the channel or reach out with questions is Instagram or Blue Sky. You can follow me on TikTok. I repost some of the shorts over there. At some point, I want to do original content on TikTok. That means extra time on content, and I'm still been trying to find my the sweet spot with YouTube with content creation. So until then. Alright, there we go. Alright, this is a pretty good fader face. I think the shading works so that he is not completely lost. Yeah, the white lenses are a little much. I'm going to, this is the one place where we're not going to stick to continuity. I'm going to give him red lenses. It's my favorite thing to do. Even though he only had red lenses in A New Hope. But I like a good red lens fader. And I think with all the sameness of this, it'll help it stand out. I tried blue lenses one time, like a really dark blue, but it didn't quite work with the black. But if I do an all dark blue Vader, the blue lenses work in that case. But when he's actually all black, sort of the dark blue does not work. It lightens him up too much, like not humorously, but it lightens the mood of Vader in a way that I don't care. I'm gonna go with some New Hope red lenses. Alright, that works. At some point I should do a Vader, a 3D Vader. It'll be fun. Maybe for April Fool's Day next year. I'll do Vader like in 3D colors. He's wearing the glasses and figure out a way to do like separations and stuff. All right, there's the Vader. Awesome. All right, and it looks like I was able to get, yep, the reflections for the eyes worked. Yeah, early designs, and Empire Strikes Back, they updated it to where the helmet was all black, or like smoky brown for the lenses, but I prefer the red of A New Hope and before, so nice. So yeah, I've been thinking about a 3D, doing something in 3D, and it just occurred to me when I did the first lens. All right, Vader is done. So that is, we have finished 3 so far this stream. And we've got about 30 minutes left, so that's pretty good. Let's see. So we got a Joe page, a Motu page, and a Star Wars page. Let's see. There it is. Let's see. Let me find. There it is. The folder of incomplete. Alright, let's see. So we've got a couple things. Save this Vader because it's just some lettering. I'll save that for another time. I do not think I can finish these in 30 minutes. Definitely won't be able to finish the capture in 30 minutes. So let's see. Golden Girl, and the rest of her gold outfit and her cape and her hair and some skin stuff. And then we've got Cyborg and Wonder Girl. So I think I will go with Golden Girl. And then that leaves a couple for the next WIP video. Most of them need a lot of stuff, but that's fine. Alright, so let's do some Golden Girl. And I doubt I'm going to finish this before the 30 minutes, but if for some reason I do, I'll just hang out for a little bit. We'll do the full 2 hours today. All I have after this is I'm going to have lunch, read for like an hour, nap with the cats, and then go back to the studio. So. Let's see. Alright, so I've got the first layers of gold down, and this is a drain, so I'm not going to necessarily. I'm going to kind of make it a little. I'm going to do sort of a lighter thing for a drain thing, and then I would if it was like actually the real person. Technically, Solara's hair is supposed to be blonde, but I do it as black. And it's just because the Golden Girl has blonde hair, and then Sapphire has blonde hair. And none of the ladies have black hair, so I'm gonna give her some black hair just so that she's a little bit more unique and stands out. Well, technically, Onyx has black hair. She is a black woman, but in the art, she's getting sort of a really dark brown hue to her hair. So I'm gonna give Solara jet black hair. Alright, there we go. Got her some hair. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Golden Girl, I think, is it's hard to say who technically owns her. Because she was created by Leisure Concepts Inc., who also created Thundercats. But they also created Thundercats specifically for Rankin Bass and like for the whole concept of the toys, right? So they sold it all. I think it was Rankin Bass. I could be mixing up which animation house it was. But it was created sort of so that they could have a cartoon in the toy line, basically to sort of cash in on the Motu style craze. And at the same time, they also created Golden Girl. And so when I researched the trademarks and sort of the copyrights for Golden Girl, the trademarks were all sort of registered to Leisure Concepts Inc., but not necessarily Galoob. Galoob did have some trademarks for toys, but it doesn't necessarily look like Galoob owned Golden Girl, which means even though Hasbro bought Galoob and technically owns all of Galoob's assets, they might only own rights to make toys for Golden Girl, not necessarily Golden Girl herself. Where it's a thing where they, in theory, would possibly have to license Golden Girl from whoever owns the actual concept of it. And I've asked a few questions I know a couple of people at Hasbro that I can ask questions, and they've kind of looked into it for me, but it's not really a simple answer. So far as they can tell. There are a few people who are a little bit higher up the food chain that I could sort of send, be like, hey, what's the deal? But I'm kind of, before I go that route, I want to kind of do a little bit more of my own research and see if I can figure out more. So when I do ask, as part of my research, I at least can ask questions that are succinct and pointed, because I have found to asking questions of people, especially with old toy properties, when you ask really specifically, you're more likely going to get your answer, because if they have to go and figure it out, it tells them where to quickly look for the thing, and people aren't going to help you with some obscure toy line that technically nobody but a few of us can care about, if they have to do a lot of footwork to get to where the information is. So if you approach them and you're like, hey, here's what I found, here's this, here's that, do you know this thing? That's a lot easier for them to go and figure out for you. So I always, anyone doing sort of research into anything, honestly, if you need to ask somebody, figure out as much of it as you can on your own, so that when you ask the question, it's as easy as possible for them to go and help you with it. But, so at some point before the end of this year, I'm hoping to get to a place where I can ask the people who could probably get me the answer about Golden Girl. Because yeah, it would be interesting to know where sort of the rights lie, and because there's a lot of, like a lot of people are just like, oh, Hasbro owns it because Galoob. But again, it's not that straight. Most of these old toy, old properties, especially from the 80s, were kind of like that. Like, most of the companies didn't actually own the concepts outright. They sort of licensed them from other companies. Even Mattel, sort of part of the reason Princess and Power is kind of such a mess, is the way they went about that. They created She-Ra and most of the Great Rebellion characters in-house, sort of on their own. But then a lot of the designs that they sort of want to do are specific to Filmation. And a lot of characters from the She-Ra cartoon were created more by Filmation than Mattel. So there's, you know, like a lot of navigation they have to do there. Like technically they created Octavia, but the Mattel Octavia is like sort of purple and has short black hair. So like they could do that Octavia toy form. I mean, they probably need to call her something else. But they could do Octopus Woman, which is what she was referred to in that all that early concept art from that Mattel came up with. But they can't really do Octavia even in her original form without sort of licensing the name, because of the way that all sort of works. So it's kind of a mess. And again, like in the 1980s when they were doing all of this, none of them thought in 20 years anybody would care about this stuff, much less 40, 50 years later. So, you know, the deals were very short-sighted in the way they were developed. That's why even with Hasbro, you'll see that some of the copyrights on some of the names of G.I. Joe stuff has expired, because they never really foresaw a world where, you know, in 2025 people still cared about this stuff. So, and it makes sense because, like, you know, prior to sort of Gen X and older millennials, nobody really, there's not a lot of precedence for it. You know, like even sort of collecting old comics didn't really become a thing until the 70s and 80s. You know, so when all of this was happening, even then, the concept of like comic books, you know, Superman was iconic, but it was also, you know, like your grandpa read Superman comics, your grandma read Wonder Woman, like, and then your dad did, and your mom did, but when they grew up, they kind of let it go. It's not like they kept reading the comics, you know. So like your Superman for you, and you know, it was different than it was for them, and they didn't care because it's not like most adults kept reading comic books. You know, they would probably watch TV shows and stuff. Comic books were for kids. So it's only, you know, within our generation that the culture for all of this, where, you know, like these old properties have an extended life and don't just disappear into limbo after they're done to be forgotten. It's sort of, there's not a precedent for it before us, if you will. So, you know, now all of these deals are structured in a way for newer properties, so that is the case. In 50 years, you know, they still retain the rights to, you know, their concepts and to make the toys, or, you know, whatever it may be. But before sort of the 80s, there was just no sense that would ever be necessary beyond sort of like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, sort of, you know. But even that, again, it's, you know, was really specific. Like outside of like sort of fancy Franklin Mint dolls and stuff, toy collecting wasn't even really a thing prior to like the 70s. You know, you might collect, you know, you might get all of the toys in the toy line, but then your toys basically got thrown away once you reached a certain age. That's why so many of the toys, even from like the 70s and 80s, are made with like really inferior plastic, because it was never a thing where people expected, you know, oh, in 50 years people are still going to be collecting this stuff, and let's make sure the plastic that we use doesn't break down. like sort of back metal, how they used to back metal everything. And now they really don't, because back metal can only be used in certain cases because it doesn't work well with, figure joints and whatnot. So, I don't know, it's just really interesting whenever you kind of sit and think about how before, 30, 40 years ago, none of this would have, nobody would have had the capacity to expect people would still care about all of this old stuff. Again, G.I. Joe's like that too. Like, most of our fathers played with, in Gen X anyway, most of our dads played with G.I. Joe. And so when Real American Hero came out, there was sort of that, like my dad said, oh yeah, I had G.I. Joe when I was a kid. And my mom remembered G.I. Joe, so that was part of when G.I. Joe Real American Hero came out. That's part of why my brother started getting all those toys. Was there was sort of that built-in knowledge of it, but it wasn't. I think my dad said, like when my G.I. Joe was bigger and it's like 12. It was like Barbie sized. And, they didn't have all these characters or whatever. Like I remember him saying something like that. But there was no, sort of no like that. Like we're not bringing that G.I. Joe into this house. That's not real G.I. Joe. Sort of how the Fans Reacted when Classified first came out and had, pretty different designs. Like my dad didn't, he wasn't like upset that there are all these characters. They're all different. And, oh my God, there's a black man and a woman. What the hell? Like there was none of that. There was no. It was just really different. They didn't attach the way we do to properties, and they get really upset when it gets changed. So, and I don't know what, what sort of the fix for that is, but it's different. Like, I don't know that we need to fix it. I just think it's an interesting phenomenon. Here we go. All right, we've got for some drain gold. To get a little bit more skin tone and the cape. But if I can get the skin tone and the cape in the next 5 to 10 minutes, we'll be done. Now this beige. Yeah, let's use beige. I would usually for her use like a peachier skin tone, but again, since it's a drain, I want the colors slightly, a little bit more flat than if she were not in a drain or a vision. It's like a vision. So, I think beige will do. It's not as sort of glowy and she's alive as the peach would be. But it also makes her not look like she's washed out or unfinished. I think for her cape I did gold. And in the last page I did her. If not, it's a dream or a vision. She can be a little bit not accurate. I'm going to go a little bit more yellow gold for the cape so that it stands out from the rest of her outfit. Golden Girl does technically take her place, so there is sort of a suggestion. And I have a storybook, a Golden Girl storybook with Solera, where she basically looks like Golden Girl with a different hairdo. But again, I'm gonna change her up just a little bit. Go with this bright sunburst gold for the cape. And again, just so that the two golds. And the armor looks a little bit more of a bronze gold, which is fine. It's in theory supposed to be like a metal. Let's make this look like fabric, since it's a cape. And the other Golden Girl figures have fabric capes, not like today where the capes would be plastic. All right, there we go. She is done. We're at 1 hour and 57 minutes. So yeah, that looks perfect. All right, thank you. And hello, Boba Hicks. Welcome, lovely to see you. Thank you. It does that, unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons I'm hoping I will not be on StreamYard much longer. StreamYard, for whatever, takes over the autofocus on my phone, because I use the phone for the camera that you guys watch this through. And so it will sometimes try to change the focus to my hand rather than the face or the page. And there is no way to overwrite that. I did a couple trouble tickets, and that sucked. So yeah. So yeah, hopefully that'll be done soon. Because I've done several trouble tickets and they just won't fix it. I don't think they know how to fix it, frankly. Anyway, let's see, really quick. Thank you. Yeah, I think this, if there's any hope for this toy line, it would be Nacelle. And in theory, they might have the rights. We don't actually know who Leisure Concepts developed the concept for, whether it was Galoob or for a cartoon. There was one commercial that had animated, had a cartoon component to it. We don't know who did the animation for that. And this coloring book is actually in the style of the animation rather than the toys. And that's one of the things that a lot of the people who are into Golden Girl and research have always been trying to find out who animated it. If we could figure out who animated that commercial, we would probably know what toy rights would look like. So anyway, yeah, I did get through a lot of WIPs. I like them too. So yeah, and just let's recap. We finished the Golden Girl page. We got Vader, Skeletor playing with his toys, and a G.I. Joe page. So that's 4 pages finished. It's pretty good. So very nice. All right. Let's just leave it with Golden Girl since that's what we finished with. Let's see, really quick. Next Sunday, I will be here with Andrew from Gatie's Toys, as mentioned earlier. We're going to color some Star Trek The Next Generation. And he's got some Star Trek content coming out, so synergy. So yeah, definitely join us for that. And if you've watched with me and Andrew before, you know it gets unhinged in the best way. That's why I have Andrew back all the time. He's also one of my best friends and favorite people in the world. So it's always good to have fun and hang out with the people you love. Let's see, tomorrow there is a flip through and coloring of that Back to the Future coloring book. And then next Friday is a color and chill video of, let's see, what is it next week? I think next week is, nope, I don't need that. Videos, there we go. Next week is Man from Atlantis. So another page from the Vintage Dip Dot book. And then on Saturday there is a color and chill spectacular, 6 pages of Masters of the Universe. So pretty full week. As always, there are going to be some shorts. And then next week for shorts, we've got Star Wars and Man from Atlantis. So it all ties in. And then those are all the Dip Dot coloring pages from those sets. So pretty solid week. In the meantime, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you all. If you haven't already, don't forget to smack the like. I will see you again in the next one. And as always, I will leave you with this.
I haven't made up my mind yet. Incidentally, which one of you bitches is my mother?